Fine. So we were discussing these probabilistic generative models, and this construct is required. So I just brought it back as I bring it back this slide. So you remember that this was a posterior formation of in binary classification when we for a given x what is the posterior probability of C1, and we have formulated in terms of sigma logistic function, right? So this is a sigmoid function here, and a is a parameter which is defined like this. So remember this. And just to find it out, what is the probability of PC1 given x? We had found out that a can be written as W transpose x, right? W transpose x plus W0. When it can be written as, don't forget that it is an important assumption. It can be written as W transpose x plus W0 when you take the class conditional distribution as Gaussian, right, with the same covariance matrices, right? So there is a two assumption. First is class conditional distribution is Gaussian, right? So first is Gaussian, and the covariance matrices for every class conditional distribution is same. Then you have found out that A can be written in this form. So in this form means it is a linear form in terms of a parameter, or in terms of x, right? Or parameter, both are linear to each other, right? So x can, if you are applying x a basis function, so you can project your d dimension to m dimension if you are using m basis functions, right? But then in high dimensional space of m dimension, w is linear, right? What it will give? It will give me a hyperplane. When you just feed this hyperplane, so if there is a x on a hyperplane, it will give 0, right? So this logistics, this sigmoid function which is a, and a is nothing but W transpose x. So if a point is on hyperplane, it will give you 0. Then this sigmoid function will give you what? 0.5, right? So it means, say that if the point is on a hyperplane, then with 0.5 probability it belongs to belongs to class C1, right? It means it is not sure, it is 50-50%, it says C1 and it says 50% to C2 because it is just on the decision boundary. And if it goes goes this side, this x goes this side, then obviously you will get some positive number, right? So if you draw this logistic sigmoid function, right, so it is like this, right? So this is 0. For 0 it gives you 0.5, and for some positive number it is greater than 0.5, right? So then the probability of C belonging to C1 is greater than 0.5, and you say that this point belongs to C1 class. If it is below the hyperplane, then what you will get? You will get some negative number, right? And this negative number somewhere here will give you some probability which is less than 0.5, right? Because this function do this. So this negative number, and if it is more negative, then the probability is almost 0. So then it says the probability of belonging to C1 is less than 0.5. It means the probability of belonging to C2 is greater than. So this region is for C2 then. So the important point is that we can write the parameter A in linear terms with the parameter W, right? And hence my decision boundary will be linear. In which space? In m dimensional space. So then we just have gone through all this, and this is what I'm talking about. So we have said that we have written probability of C1 given x into a linear terms, and this W is defined by this one, right? So just to find out W, what you need to calculate? Covariance matrix, which is m by m matrix, right? It is m by m matrix, covariance matrix. You need to find it out, and then you find it out mu1, which is a m dimension vector, and m2, which is also a m dimension vector, right? When you calculate mu1, mu2, and sigma, then you can plug into this formula, you will get a W vector, right? Similarly, how you calculate W0, which is nothing. So W is nothing, but it's a orientation of a hyperplane, how your hyperplane is in the space. And W0 is nothing but how much far it is from the origin, right? So it is W0. So W0 is again, you calculated mu1 sigma, then you plug it into a formula, mu2 sigma, you plug into a formula. And the other parameter is what is the probability of C1 and what is the probability of C2, right? It is nothing but pi and 1 minus pi. When you get every value, you just plug into this formula W0, you get a W0, and it will tell you how your hyperplane orients and how far it is from the origin. So in short, the moment you get hyperplane, you start calculating your posterior probabilities. But to calculate the posterior probability, you have to do a lot of things. You have to calculate separately what is PC1. It means a prior probability, and then a class conditional probability. And it means when you say that I need to estimate class conditional probability, it means you say that you want to estimate your mean and covariance matrices. So to estimate your posterior probability, you need to estimate all these parameters here, right? PC1, PC2, class conditional probabilities for C1, class conditional probabilities for C2, which is nothing but mean and covariance matrices. I told you that how to do it using likelihood estimation. You just calculate the likelihood function and maximize it with respect to pi. You found out that this PC1 is nothing, but it's a ratio in a data set for a data sample, right? So it is PC1. So this pi is nothing, but it is a probability of PC1. PC1, right? And what it says the number of samples that belongs to C1 class in your data set. So if their data set have some 100 samples, and out of 100 samples, only 60 samples belongs to class C1, right? Then it says that it is a 60.6 probability is for PC1. And hence 0.4 for PC2, right? That's how you calculated probability PC1, PC2. Then we said that how to estimate mean and mean 1 and mean 2. Then you just take the same likelihood log likelihood function. You choose a term which contains mu1 because the rest will be constant. And then the rest will be constant. When you take a derivative with mu1, this will go to 0. And the things will be left with mu1 and put it equals to 0. It will solve into this expression, which is saying that, which is nothing, but it says that if you have some PC samples C1, PC1, and this is PC2 samples. So you take all the samples in class C1 and take a mean only for class C1, right? So it is a mean for class C1 separately. How you take a mean? You just add them and divide the number of samples in class C1, which is N1, right? Which is N1. So you are dividing all the samples in C1 by the number of samples. And what you're doing, you're just adding X because the corresponding Tn will be 0. So we have discussed this yesterday. You just see the lecture. And correspondingly for mu2, what you have done, because you have just added all the samples here. You have added all the samples here, only these samples, and divide by the number of samples in this class, which is nothing but N2, right? Which is nothing but N2. So you are just finding out the mean separately for this. So this is how you get mean mu1 and mu2. Similarly, you do the exercise again, and you take those only terms which contains in log likelihood function. You take only those terms which contain sigma, and the rest of the terms will be constant. You take these are the terms which contains only sigma. When you take a derivative with respect to sigma and put it equals to 0, you will find that sigma is equal to S, and S is nothing but it is a weighted sum of covariances from class 1 and class 2. So it is like this. So this is my class 1 and this is my class 2, right? So you take the covariance of class 1 separately. So this is the formula to calculate the covariance of class C1. Divide by the number of samples. So this is S1. So this is a covariance matrix for class C1. Similarly, you calculate the covariance matrix for class C2. This is S2. Then you need to sum them, and you need to sum them in the proportional of the samples. So the number of samples in S1 is total weight of the samples in this is N1 by N, right? N1 is the number of samples in class 1, and N is the total number of samples in your data set. And what is the weight for S2? It is N2 by N, right? Total number of samples in class 2 by total number of samples in your data set. You take the weighted sum, and this is finally you get it as. So this is how you get your mean, variance, and PC1. Fine. The moment you calculated it, then you come to this formula here. Now you got everything by your maximum likelihood estimation. Not to forget, you are estimating using maximum likelihood estimation. So once you calculate all these for all these values separately, one by one, so you have calculated PC1, you have calculated PC2, you have calculated mu1, you have calculated mu2, you have calculated mu1, and you have calculated covariance matrix sigma. Now everything you know to find out what is your W and what is your W0, and you just calculate it and you will get a hyperplane somewhere, right? Based on your class values by likelihood estimation. Any question on this? Any question on this so far? Very nice. Good. Okay. Very good. So if you don't have any questions, so let's okay, let's calculate how many samples I need, how many parameters I need to estimate. Can anybody tell me how many parameters I need to estimate for this? So okay, before going into, I'm going to if you have somehow, let's say what I'm saying, okay, well, how many parameters you want to estimate for this? Can anybody tell me? So we will calculate one by one. How many parameters you need to calculate for PC1 and PC2? What are the different numbers you need to put in your head to find out what is probability of C1? I want to count those numbers, right? How many different numbers you should have in your head that the probability of PC1 is this and probability of PC2 is this. For example, if PC1 is 0.5, one number exactly. So this is one number. So it means I need to know only one parameter to know both of this, right? If I tell you PC1 is 0.6, you automatically get PC2 is 0.4. So for these two values, I need to calculate one parameter. So this is one parameter. How many parameters I do need to calculate for mu1 and mu2? Quickly. So I am in m-dimensional space using basis function. So how many parameters I need to calculate for mu1 and mu2? How many different numbers I need to know to find out what is mu1 and mu2?
For mu1 m, for mu2 also m.
Very good. So it is 2m, right? So this is 2m. And how many parameters do I need to calculate for covariance matrix?
M cross m.
Everybody agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so this is how, because covariance matrix is a symmetric matrix, and you know in symmetric matrix, they are like, they are mirror along the diagonal. So you don't need to know m by m matrices, right? You just need to know only the upper half of the matrix and you just applicate it. So because there is a dependency, right? So you don't need to calculate m by m. So you calculate how many numbers, you just calculate this diagonal elements, then these upper diagonal elements, and just you keep on going like this, and you come here. So how many diagonal elements are there at the diagonal? How many elements are there at the diagonal? It is m.
Sigma.
M, right? And then how many elements are there here? It is m minus 1. And till where you need to go? Till 1, right? So it is a sum of natural numbers. It is m into m plus 1 by 2, right? M into m plus 1 by 2. So these are the total parameters that you need to estimate for the covariance matrix. Then you add it. You added this, so you can write it as m square plus m, right? M square plus m, and this 2, you just take it here. It will be 4, right? This will be 2. This 4m plus m will be 5m, right? So you can write it as this way: m plus 5, m plus 5 divided by 2 plus 1, right? So these are the total number of parameters that you need to estimate when you do probabilistic generative modeling for classification, for binary classification, right? Is this fine? Can you quickly say yes so
Yes.
that I can? Very good. So these are the total number of parameters if I need to do probabilistic generative modeling for binary classification with some assumptions. So let's talk about assumption. What if my class conditional probabilities are not Gaussian? Well, this you started with the thought that my class conditional probabilities are Gaussian. But what if these class conditional probabilities are not Gaussian? Then the things may go wrong, right? So in that, when they may go wrong, then the hyperplane that you will estimate will not be that will be the true hyperplane of decision boundary. So if things go as per your assumption, it's fine. But if the things don't go as per your assumptions, then things will be not as per your expectation. It will go drastically wrong. So there is a disadvantage in terms of assumption and also in terms of parameters. There are a huge number of parameters that you need to estimate. So let's say one smart kid outcome from the class and say why eventually I need to find out a hyperplane, right? And that hyperplane needs only W and W0. So if these are the two things, can't I estimate these W parameter directly without calculating posterior and then conditional and then plugging those posterior and conditional and then find out W0 and W1, right? So just to calculate the hyperplane, you need to calculate these number of parameters. And once you know these parameters, eventually you are calculating what? W and W0, right? So if you eventually are calculating W0, why can't you just start with a W and W0 and just directly estimating a hyperplane itself without estimating these prior probabilities and conditional probabilities? Is there any way to model your posterior probability directly in terms of finding out a hyperplane? Once you find out a hyperplane, you can see that hyperplane has a posterior probability if it goes above the hyperplane and if it goes down the hyperplane, right? You understood my point here, what I'm trying to say?
Sort of. Sir, so we want to find out a way of finding out W0 and W without knowing the posterior.
No, I have not said that. Without knowing the prior, without knowing the conditional.
Okay.
Because once you calculate the prior and conditional, eventually what you are doing with the help of prior and posterior, prior and conditional, you are calculating the parameters for the posterior, which is nothing but you are sort of calculating W and W0, right? Okay. So do you understand this, what I have just said? So rather than doing all this work of calculating so many parameters and eventually getting W and W0, if there is a way to find it out, the hyperplane directly without estimating these parameters, then it would be good for me. Is this making sense to you, or do I need to clarify further for that? Like one is saying yes, so really good for me, at least one is getting. So do you understand this? Can you quickly nod your head yes or no for this? Can you type it? Okay. Okay. So let's try to concrete this thought. So not to forget that we had estimated our hyperplane when we were doing probabilistic generative modeling. And in probabilistic generative modeling, this was my construct, right? I need to apply my Bayes theorem, and there is a prior, there is a posterior, There is a prior, this is a conditional. I put it, plug all these things into the formula, and then I could have calculated by posterior. This is because this is why it is known as probabilistic generative modeling. And and then I discussed like these are the ways to, with some assumptions, you can actually find out the decision boundaries. Then I am saying like this is a huge long way to do to estimate the decision boundary, which is linear in terms of W. Let's try to model it differently. And when we say that, this category says probabilistic discriminative models, right? Probabilistic discriminative models. So discriminative means you are just estimating posterior directly for a given X. So if I give you X, you are not calculating prior and conditional for that. You're directly estimating the posterior probability, right? Without calculating the prior and conditional. Okay. So let's then for this, it means I just want to directly calculate this function, right? This is the function. You remember what was there in the probabilistic generative model? Can you remember what I have written there in that sigmoid? Can you name it? What I have written there in the probabilistic generative model? Hey, very good. Yes, you are also right. So I have written A, that is nothing but W transpose X plus W0, and then I calculated it with just estimating prior and conditionals and all, right? Then what if I can directly model this W transpose directly? And if it is the case, right? So what I shall be doing, then I will plug my X to it, right? So it is a hyperplane, right? I will plug my X to it. If this is on the hyperplane, it will give me 0.5 probability. If it is above, it will give me some positive probability greater than 0.5. And if it is below, it give me some probability which is less than 0.5. So it is directly estimating the posterior probability if you get me this hyperplane, right? So I have to estimate this hyperplane here. In terms of statistics, the model is known as logistic regression, although it should be emphasized that this is a model for classification rather than regression. Despite of the word regression, here we are doing classification with this logistic regression. So don't get confused if somebody is saying can we do regression with logistic regression. So we are actually doing classification. In logistic regression, what the ultimate aim is to find out what? Hyperplane. Okay. So this is I have already discussed with you. So if I am in descriptive models, how many parameters do I need to calculate here for this hyperplane? If I am estimating directly my hyperplane, how many parameters do I need to estimate here?
2, W and 5.
M. W is a vector. W0 is scalar, right? So it is there. M. Very good. Very nice. It is M. You got Ritvik, right? It is M. It's
Yes,
a
sir.
vector. So now this is a huge win over it, right? So I was here, I had to calculate all these parameters, and for this I need to calculate only M. And this is good. This is good. And it saves a lot of computation, and it saves a lot of headache also. If I go wrong on my prior assumption, like if I had assumed that it was class conditional was Gaussian, but if it is not, then I might go wrong in my assumptions, and things will go wrong in predictions then. So you can avoid all this by just directly estimating M at this hyperplane with the data set directly. And underlying assumption can be different, right? Underlying assumption that could be Gaussian or exponential, I don't care, because I just need to fit my hyperplane to my data set directly without going intermediate steps, right? So let's see how to do it. And this is, I expect you, all of you who are really learning my lectures, I expect you to understand it in just one shot. So so this is how I see it, and I want you to see it in the same way. So it will always simplify the things. So this is a hyperplane. Let's say hyperplane is a parameter. which you can write in terms of a W. You change your W, your hyperplane will get changed. So let's say there are some classes, some class points for binary classification, right? So what you do, you just calculate the probability. You calculate the probability P1, you calculate the probability P2, you calculate the probability P3. Can any genius in the class tell me how I can calculate the probability P1, P2, P3? Any PI? Any PI, how can I calculate it?
Distance of that point from that hyperplane.
Distance of from the hyperplane will not be a probability, right? So you may be in this right direction, but the answer is not correct. So distance will be 100, distance can be 1000, so it cannot be probability. I'm saying it's a probability. How to convert the distance into a probability? How to calculate a perpendicular distance from a hyperplane into a probability? So it means you are not watching my previous lectures. You should see them.
So like dividing it with the total distance of all the points.
No, not at all. Projections on hyperplane, most of you are giving an answer. Projection on hyperplane will give me the perpendicular distance. If it is on the hyperplane, then it will give me 0. If it is above the hyperplane, give me some positive number. If it is below, it is giving me some negative number. And you can convert it into an absolute distance or perpendicular distance. But how to convert that perpendicular distance into probability?
Using the sigmoid function.
Yes, very good. Very nice. So you can apply sigmoid function. What sigmoid function will do? It takes negative infinity. So it takes some negative infinity to plus infinity numbers on a real line, right? And what it do? It just map. It can sandwich every number from a real number between 0 to 1, right? And all those points which are 0, it just map it to 0.5. So those points which are on the hyperplane will get mapped to 0.5 probability. Just I have said in first slide. Can you connect this now? Can you write yes or no so that it will give me courage to go? Very good way. Very good. Very nice. Very smart class. So now this is like how we do. We are mapping these real numbers. We are converting them, these real numbers, into probability by taking this sigmoid function, right? So once I calculate P1, P2, P3, and P4, P5, and P6, right? Likewise, I calculate if I have n numbers, I will calculate these n probabilities and I multiply them. If I multiply them, what is this expression called? Anybody?
Likelihood.
Likelihood. Very good. It's likelihood. And what I need to do this then? What I can do this with this function?
Maximize it.
Very good. I can maximize it with respect to
W.
W. Because W is my parameter. I can switch. So if I change my W from here to here, my probability will totally get changed, right? Then I need to find it out whether this W is good or this W is good or this W is good. And I will seek for every W and I will maximize it with respect to W. And whichever is maximizing it, that is my exactly the output of this hyperplane. So that was my hyperplane, which says for this data set, this is when you choose this hyperplane, you will get the maximum probability for every sample, right? So here, this is a short, this is what I have said. This is a smart way of writing it. For an example, for all those samples where Tn is 1, right? So I'm talking about all those PC1 samples. So you are calculating Yn, and Yn is nothing but you are calculating the posterior probability, and calculating the posterior probability is nothing but it is a sigmoid function, right? you are putting a sigmoid function in this term, W transpose X, right? So here, this is how you can write it for Yn. So just for you guys, if I want to write it, it is 1 upon 1, what is this? It is, I have not read here. It's 1 plus, I think plus exponent minus W transpose X, right? So this is for sigmoid. Sigmoid of what? W transpose, sigmoid of W transpose X, because I know so this is for sigmoid of W transpose X. And it will give me what? It is what? It is a probability, and it is a posterior probability. Probability of PC 1 given X, right? Given X. So this is for X1, X2, Xn. So you calculate for every X in this probability, and you just multiply them, right? Because if you calculate the probability for this, can anybody tell me what is this expression doing here?
It doesn't matter which class it belongs to, because 1 minus Tn or Tn will ensure that it is calculating the probabilities for only one class.
Not in that way what I want to hear. Can anybody more precisely tell me how should I read this X term? You can unmute and just try it. It is PC2. Very good. Bhavya. Very nice. It is PC2 because you always calculate Yn in terms of PC1. So Yn will give you the probability for class C1, but you are interested in probability for class 2 when your label is 0, right? So if your label is 0, then this term will get activated. But if label is 0, you don't need class C1 probability. You need class C2 probability. That's why you are subtracting it from 1. Very good, Bhavya. Very good. And this is all. So I am multiplying every probability from P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6, irrespective. And it is like total number of samples in my data set. And for class C1, I am calculating Yn, and for class C2, I am calculating 1 minus Yn probability. And I'm multiplying them all. And this is my likelihood function. So this T is the probability of my data set, because T is a vector. And the length is the number of samples in my data set. So you can just read it as a data set. What is your data set saying? For a given hyperplane W, right? I hope this is very clear to you guys, because I have been discussing it so many times. So you should read it like the way I am reading. So W is a hyperplane, T is a data set. For this hyperplane, what is the probability for this data set? And you change your W, the probability will get changed. So you want to maximize it because it's a likelihood function. And here you go. What is that old trick? Take a log of it. So you take a log likelihood function. It will expand that way, and you take a negative, right? Because likelihood function is somewhere this way, right? So if you take a log, it is somewhere like this. But if you take a negative of it, it is somewhere like this, right? So you want to minimize it. So this is how you take a negative. So anytime you want to create an error function, just take my words. Anytime you want to create an error function, whether it's a deep learning or a machine learning, you calculate a likelihood function, right? And you take a negative log of it. It is always an error function. And you can minimize it, even in deep learning, right? So you just take a negative of it and minimize it. Minimize in terms of what? Now here the question comes. Where is W here? Can anybody show me W? In this expression, I can't see W. Where is the W here? Because I need to maximize it with respect to W. Where is the W? So why is the probability of PC1 and it is a sigmoid for this A, it is written as W transpose X, right? So here this A in this sigmoid is nothing but W transpose X. Right? So this is W. You want to maximize this expression with respect to this W, which is in this form, right? So let's do it. How to do it? So this is my error function. This is my error function, which is negative log likelihood. You take a derivative with respect to yn first, because y, you see yn here, right? So come here, chain rule. First you take a derivative with yn, then yn is nothing but it's a sigmoid function. Then you take a derivative with respect to sigmoid function. And in sigmoid you see w, then you take a derivative with respect to this an, right? So there are three derivatives. And then you multiply them using a chain rule. So first you take a derivative of e with respect to yn, you get this expression. Then you take a yn with respect to an, because this is how you yn is connected. So this is yn, right? This is yn. So this is y, you take the derivative of yn with respect to this a, right? This a. This is how you can write it. This is yn1 minus yn. This is a property of a sigmoid function. You can directly write the derivative in terms of output. So it is yn1 minus yn. And finally, you take a derivative of an with respect to w. What is an? Is w transpose phi. When you take a derivative with respect to w, you get phi n itself, right? Which is nothing but x in m dimension. You multiply them all. When you multiply them all, this can be solved this way for one sample. And for all n samples, you just take the sigma over it. So you take the gradients and you're just summing them up. So it is a gradient for all whole data set, right? Is this clear? So I'm just taking a derivative and this is like how we got it. Fine. So let's do it. Then once I calculate the derivative, I can do it in a sequential algorithm also, because I can calculate the derivative of one sample one by one. So the sample for one derivative, the derivative for one sample is this. You plug it here, right? You update your W, and this is your hyperplane. You take your second sample and update your W for every sample. So it is like this. You just queue them up in some your data set. You queue them your data set somewhere like this. Take every sample one by one, update your W. Then take second sample, update your W, and you do it again and again. Finally, it will get converged. So sequential algorithm will give the same result when you do it for like, it is some kind of a stochastic algorithm, right? So it will converge and it will give you the answer. Finally, before winding it up in last moment. So just to make you visualize, I have found out a hyperplane which is separating my two classes with some criteria that is satisfying the maximum probability. But I am maximizing it over a W, right? So I am getting my W. Can anybody tell me what is overfitting here? What is overfitting then? Because it is a likelihood estimation, can I get overfitting here on this thing? Very good. How can I get an overfitting here? Because I'm maximizing it with like this, a likelihood estimation. How can I maximize it? How can I get overfitting here? What is overfitting? First, tell me what is the nature of overfitting. Like in regression, overfitting was nothing but your curve was going through every samples in your data set. That was overfitting. What is overfitting in logistic regression here? No. So classifying everything correctly, yes. That's what I wanted, right? So STP is saying classifying everything correctly, and if it is classifying everything correctly, it means This is what I wanted, right? If what I wanted, if it is doing the same thing, I can't say it is overfitting. It is actually doing the desirable thing. Ritvik is saying it fits even the noise. I don't know where is that noise. Does not generalize. I can't see why it can't be generalized. You need to tell me what is overfitting here. Classify even the noise. I don't know. I can't see that. Okay, this is a question to ponder.
If it classifies everything correctly, it would mean that there is no value lying on the hyperplane, right?
No, it can't do anything. If something value some, no, it depends, right? So if you just feed some x and it falls somewhere exactly, because it will give you this will work till you are training it. Once you train it, you get a hyperplane, you feed your x, and if it is on the hyperplane, it will give you 0.
Okay.
So Amit, here it can't because the linear model only. It may use suboptimal line due to outliers. It may use suboptimal line due to outliers. No. Plane is very close to any one class. No, it can't happen. We are not changing M value of model. No. Okay. So I just wound it up try to give you a feel of it. So this was my sigmoid function. You remember? This was my sigmoid function. If I am on hyperplane, I will get 0.5, right? So on x-axis, what is the value on x-axis? Can anybody tell me for this logistic regression? Quickly, what is the value of x-axis? W transpose x. Very good, Yashdeep. Very nice. W transpose x. And you know very well because of last 10 classes you have attended. If you multiply a hyperplane with some constant, will your hyperplane move?
No.
No, right? So if you multiply your hyperplane with larger number, then you are actually multiplying your W with some bigger constant, right? It will not move. But what will happen? What will happen? At first, the scale distance was here 10. Now the same distance can be seen as 100, right? And if you multiply 1000, the same distance can be seen as 1000. So you see the same distance in a scaled version without effectively doing anything, without moving your hyperplane. And what will happen once you sandwich it into a sigmoid function? This sigmoid function will turn into a step function, right? It will very closely turn into a step function, because now this point, which is exactly near to the hyperplane, where my probability should be 0.6 or 0.55, which is very near to the hyperplane, because you have multiplied your W with so large value, then W transpose X will be some 1000. And when you put it into a sigmoid, this 1000 will give you the probability directly equal to 1, right? Because you are putting it in sigmoid function. And this sigmoid function takes a larger value and map it to 1. It takes 0, map it to 0.5. It takes negative value and point it to 0, map it to 0. So by scaling, what will happen? Even the values which are very near to the hyperplane, they just directly get a probability equal to 1 if they are above, and if they are below, they get the probability equal to 0. You got this point?
Yes, sir.
And if it is the case, then those points which are very near to the hyperplane, where the probability we are expecting should be equal to 0.5, they are actually getting probability either 1 or 0, and which is not the desirable behavior, right? So in that case, we are doing overfitting here. And just to avoid it, what we should do, we should actually doing a regularization. I hope this makes sense. I am a bit above the time, so let's do it. So tomorrow is your quiz, and hopefully just prepare well for your exam.
So what is the syllabus?
What do you mean by syllabus? Everything that is covered here is syllabus.
Okay. And what platform